is that you can only use a debit card and not a credit card. So, you have a little more of safeguard around the type of bets you place. You can put yourself on a list if you feel you are in danger of, betting more than you can afford and have a gambling addiction problem. And I just want to point out, we have gambling with the lottery. I doubt it's going anywhere. And with that type of gambling addiction, obviously it's very different. It's not on your phone. We'll have to deal with some new issues. But we were spending about $150,000 on a pass-through hotline that was regional. And with that money, I think in the 6 months that were most recently accounted for, one person called that hotline for gambling addiction support. It's really hard to find. It's not, something that we're advertising well. It's not something that people have awareness exists and that they can get help through the state for gambling addiction. So the new money that we'd be putting toward the Department of Mental Health to support dealing with gambling addiction, hopefully will go a long way, not just for people who might be experiencing addiction with the legal means available to them or with sports wagering. But the study committee also looked at, ways that young people are enticed to start participating in games of chance on the internet and on their phones. And we're going to have to get a lot more serious about prevention and intervention around this type of wagering as well. You look at fantasy sports and other types of fantasy games. And there's a lot of opportunity to help with gambling addiction more than we are now. So, I know it's not particularly savory to everyone. I don't expect everyone to vote for it, but it's something that's happening, and it's something that we could be doing a lot more to address and make sure it's safe and, a safe and legal experience for Vermonters. And that's, I hope, the big picture of the bill.
Well, that's terrific. And I think I'll just build on that, because this bill really does, it creates a regulatory framework that does three basic fundamental things. It reduces harm to Vermonters by creating strong consumer protections, which they have none of right now, and guardrails around legal sports wagering. And I think that's the thing that this is really, I would frame this up as a consumer protection bill. It captures lost revenue otherwise going to other states and to offshore, to criminal organizations that can be used for problem gambling, that could be used for problem gambling programs. And it moves sports wagering from the sort of dangerous illicit market to a safe, legal, and regulated market. Right now, we don't really have a handle on how much money Vermonters are losing to illegal markets, but they're losing significant amounts. Because we know, as Keisha pointed out, through this geo system of being able to identify who's trying to get onto the online sites from Vermont, we know that there are at least 18,000 people who've tried and have failed. So, those are just sort of mostly at the borders. Just a little bit of background. We have Tucker Anderson in Legislative Council did a full study on sports wagering over the last 2 years. That was asked from our committee in, I think, 2019 or 20. And he did that. It took him a long time to complete that work. And it's now, people are able to read it. But in the spring of 2018, one of the reasons we're dealing with this is that in 2018, the Supreme Court in Murphy v. NCAA lifted a federal ban on the activity of wagering on live sports. And previously, only Nevada permitted this activity. And since then, 36 states have legalized the activity or have passed legislation preparing to do so, with 7 more considering legislation this session. And we are the last state in our region to actually legalize this. New Hampshire and New York have already legalized mobile sports betting, and Massachusetts is set to launch it this year. Last biennium, we supported the task force that you've just heard from Keisha, and we also had done this work with Tucker, who has done an exhaustive research study on sports wagering. And we talk about wagering betting. The bill is really about sports wagering. It's a slightly nicer term, but you can't, putting lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig. So, I mean, it is betting. fantasy sports, for those of you who have kids that know about fantasy sports are also online, but they are an amateur. There's not betting that's involved with fantasy sports, and we enabled that a while ago. People are curious about why we want to take this step, and I would say the first reason is, as Keisha has already indicated, sports betting is illegal in Vermont, but legal in all our neighboring states. And data has confirmed that people are trying to get on in Vermont who are currently doing, and it showed that more than 139,000 attempts by Vermonters have tried to get on to log on to New York platforms. That's just from Vermont. 139,000 people or attempts have been tried to get onto the legalized New York gambling scene.
Allison,
Yeah.
This came from the House. Historically, we've supported it. The House is not.
Absolutely.
So the question I have is the House tax motion. I know economic development in finance are substantial.
Yeah.
The House has. No, I know it's in finance, but my point is, it's very different this year. The House has actually passed something. My question to you is, did economic development make major changes?
We haven't passed it. Well, yes, we have, because it's in finance. We did not make major changes.
Okay, I was just
right.
wondering.
No, I know that there are people who are concerned about it in the caucus, which is why we're addressing it. And I guess what would be the best use of time really would be, I'd just like to chat about the revenue briefly, because one of the, we've already budgeted it, I think. I think the best guesstimate is that we would do in fiscal year 24 would be $1 million to $1.5 million to $2 million. Is that right? Something like that. And in the following year, between 4.6 to 10 million. We will see. But I think we can answer specific questions if you have at this point, because I know there are some concerns in this body about this moving in this direction. But by legalizing it, we can also manage and regulate and control it. Irene.
So those 139,000 people who tried to get into New York, those were unique logins, or was it just somebody trying 100 times again?
No, those were unique logins.
Just want to check. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just checking.
Yeah.
I looked at it in the release past years stuff about advertising, but it didn't look very great. Like you're doing advertising. But that's my predatory advertising.
There is, we addressed it, and the bill addresses it, and it is really focusing they are not allowing, and this is a good question for Wendy Knight, but the DLL, as far as I understand, is working very hard to keep all the advertising out of social media sites that younger people access. So and you're absolutely right. It's a porous world.
Yeah, I think it's very. You don't know you thought that they were. You're just doing like
it's a good question. I don't have the answer for that fully at the moment, but I do know that that is a major concern of theirs, and that they will not be able to focus ads on, and I don't know how they would do that.
I have nothing to add, except the microphone's very specific about who it can hear. And so I didn't hear anything from what Senator Perchlik said, and that might be an issue for the live stream. I don't know.
Could you hear Andy's question? His question is, how do we possibly control advertising so that young people don't see it? And I think that's a good question. I do know that everyone is very focused on. Yeah. Oh, there's a very strict a way that you can get onto this app, and you can't get on it unless you're over.
It's also been down to Massachusetts. Sport betting has been there, but the advertising is pretty prevalent. very targeted. Maybe, I don't know what the age limit in Massachusetts, but it's very much targeted to, you know, college bros. It's very targeted. It's like, this is going to be fun and you're going to win off. It's all just great. It's wonderful. Which, what we'd expect. Same with, you know, alcohol. So
Right.
I just want to make sure we're thinking about that.
I can answer. I heard most of that. I think I get the gist of it. I heard you a little better. I'm trying to let Justin know that because I think he's experimenting with the microphone. So a lot, we want to delegate a lot of authority to DLL. And I know that's hard for us as legislators, but we heard over and over again from states that have a lot of safety measures in place, like Massachusetts and Connecticut. In fact, Connecticut's lottery director is our former lottery director here in Vermont. And they have a lot of great data that we can benefit from about the age of people who experience gambling addiction, what types, where they are looking at advertising, how they become drawn in, how you regulate that in the contracts that you negotiate with the platforms, as well as, you know, Massachusetts has looked at race and other demographic information. Asian Americans are actually the most likely to experience gambling addiction. So they look at geographic information about where certain communities live. I'd like us to get to the point in Vermont where we have really good data. And it is actually, when you're online, there is better data than when you're playing, you know, scratch tickets or the lottery. But these states have a wealth of information about how they've regulated the same platforms in their states to try and keep access away from young people and keep young people from getting enticed.
To tag on to Keisha, all advertising in colleges, universities, high schools is all banned. I do think it's a question. I mean, it is, advertising is definitely porous, but operators have to give us a particular plan. And DLL, to go back to Keisha's point about DLL regulating this, operators have to submit a plan on advertising to DLL, and they have to approve it. So we will know more during the course of that. And DLL and the operators and the players all have the ability to restrict play but the advertising piece, I think will be sort of a work in progress, but the intent is very much to limit it as much as possible to the populations of 21 and under. Any other
I
questions?
have a question.
Yeah, Judy.
So,
And then Dick.
follow up to this. So I know that the Attorney General's office has worked we've worked with them in the past regarding sort of regulation of internet and social media activity. So I think the Attorney General's office about that level of regulation that is very interesting.
Absolutely, the Attorney General is on the task force.
Yeah.
And the Attorney General has testified in support of all the measures that are currently here. So there is nothing above. I mean, the Attorney General has signed off on this work.
But is there anything with regard to ISP, internet providers and others, so that there's
I don't.
flexibility coming in the presence of
Let me get back to you on that. I don't think so. Dick.
Yeah.
I mean,
Fred.
I need to get the answer.
The phrase went by quickly, DLL and the operators. I just want to zero in on the fact that DLL is not the operator.
Right, and the play.
That the operators are somebody else. And what I'm worried about is I don't think this is legalizing the gambling so much. I'll occasionally make a small bet with a friend about the outcome of a ball game or something. What we're talking about doing is inviting the gambling industry into the state. I'm not sure where I stand on that. Wayne, right? I'm not, and some of it is intuitive, admittedly. It's kind of like I don't trust these guys, but it just in general, there is an industry that what they sell is the right place to bet, and that they promise that they pay you in the less likely the outcome that you want. But if you lose, you give them your money, and it's, I don't think it's our job to save people from themselves. I don't think it's our job to combat sin, but I do wonder if we really fight this particular industry.
So I would just make a point. We are not inviting them in. They will have no physical presence here other than, and we have no billboards, so there'll be no billboard advertising. So we are not doing casinos. We are not doing physical presence. This is merely online.
Let me correct, invite them to
do business, and in some ways to protect Vermonters, because to go to your point, Dick, about getting paid out, people who won were not getting paid. Now that people are doing this in illegal markets elsewhere, people are not getting paid when they win. Yes, whenever you bet, you have the lovely opportunity of losing all that money, but you also cannot lose more than what's in your debit card. Credit cards are not permitted, and we are trying to constrain it so that it has as little financial impact on more than that one individual. I mean, well, Brian and then Ann.
So in some ways, kind of a consumer protection.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? I mean, that's what we're already do this time. Take these actions.
Brian is saying, so Keisha can't hear any of you.
I was going to say, I can't hear Brian, but I probably agree with him.
Oh, she agrees. Great. Okay, so yes, as I said, I think this is a consumer protection because we've heard for too long, we're not protecting Vermonters who are playing in this world. So 139,000 unique attempts is only I think a partial picture of the number of people who would like to participate in online sports wagering.
Right. And I don't want to be absolute, but I believe we took almost all of the recommendations of the National Council on Problem Gambling and put them in our bill. And it places us among the states with the most protections around online sports wagering in the country. They are a neutral group. They don't support or oppose bills. They just try to offer the best behavioral protections for people. And we took, I believe, all of their recommendations for our bill.
Great, and then we're going to shift to Ginny because I know people are going to be getting to feel it.
Thank you. I'm wondering if there are any provisions in the bill that would help make the interface with the person less of an addicting experience. I mean, these companies have psychologists on people
But that's their business.
Next screens, like invitations to do it again, any of that stuff. Yeah, push notifications, like all of those things, I think. We need to make the experience less addictive.
I think that is a question we have to talk about with the commissioner as she looks. These will be RFPs with the operators, and there will be contracts drawn up, standard state contracts. So this may or may not be able to be addressed. At what point are we intruding on the way they do business? I don't know that question, but let's have that conversation with Wendy. I think that's a question to ask Wendy as she reviews all these contracts, because what opportunity do we have to weigh in on that? I'm not sure.
Okay.
I will just say that, as a final point, maybe to Senator Perchlik's point as well, hopefully this is iterative. We're going to be learning a lot from what's happened in other states, but also from our own experience. If you see advertising somewhere you think directs, is directed at young people, if you feel like, I've learned a lot. You can bet on what color the Gatorade will be that gets dumped on the coach, like things that are really, I think, concerning.
We bet on Miro's weight.
Thank you. Right. Yeah. I don't know who won that bet, but, I think and that can be manipulated if you know the answer. But anyway, we have to be thoughtful in the next year as these contracts are underway, and giving flexibility to the commissioner also allows her to, talk to them about changes, and to have more negotiating power. I think the other thing you may have seen come up is, should we allow more than 6 operators to begin with? People want 6 to be a floor instead of the maximum right now. That actually, the more operators we're dealing with, the less negotiating power the commissioner has as she makes these contracts for us to get, the safest vendors into the state and the most opportunity for the revenue we need to help Vermonters with problem gambling and other health issues. So, it should be iterative, and hopefully people will weigh in with the commissioner as this moves forward.
So just to finish on that point, we are in the bill allowed 2 to 6 operators, and that will be the max. So I'm going to shift gears. If you have additional questions, I have a talking points sheet I will send out to the caucus, and you can ask any one of us questions. Right now, though, I'd love to shift to Ginny, who has a constitutional amendment she'd like to briefly talk about, and then Chris, who has a short issue he wants to talk about. So, Jenny, and come closer to the microphone so people can hear you.
I have talked with most, I guess I would like to share with you the constitutional amendment that was introduced back in 2018 and never made it through. This is an inclusive equal rights amendment. When we say equal rights, we automatically think of sex, gender, women, but this is more inclusive. So looking at race, as well as gender, differences in gender identity. So it's not a new article, but it is an amendment, Article 7, which is our common principles for offering equal protection and security to all Vermonters, more explicitly to those Vermonters who have been. So I have
Right.
the amendment.
Please sign on. If you want to sign on, please see
There
Ginny.
are between 28 and 34 states already with something like this, and they've been active in using that for protection. You have to please sign on.
Right. Thank you. And Chris, and then we will end.
I just wanted to let people know that, the House voted the Affordable Heat Act through on Friday. It's come over. We have a 26-page side-by-side in Senate Natural. We started our walk through that. We'll continue and push on it. Dot every I, cross every T, make sure we know what they have. I also I'm aware already that people are being subjected to a certain amount of political noise around it. The heart of the legal underpinnings of that bill have been thoroughly vetted. We'll re-vet them, and we'll see a safe and sound and legally sturdy bill again for you in short order.
Great. Thank you. Anybody have anything else they want to share or discuss?